We're live and in effect. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me today. Live chat is back again this week. Got two guys, familiar faces, guys I've known for a long time in this industry, and guys that I don't know. I guess I would consider friends because I've actually met these people in person. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many people that you know, like through online interactions, but really you've never met them before. But I actually met these guys, sat down, and talked to them. So I'm comfortable with these guys, right? But I don't want to go into these long introductions of who they are. You should know who they are, right? We got the Fight Dietitian, Jordi Sullivan, and George Hickman. But let's start with George, man, because he has some news for us. Like, he has something that he needs to get off his chest, right? Like, you need to tell us some things. Come on, tell us what you need to tell us.
Yeah, not get off my chest, but yeah, I've been at Tiger Muay Thai for the last 7 years since 2014, and it's I've given my notice, and I've left. A lot of people I'm sure have seen that they hired a new coach, and they will hire another coach as well. But I have no ill will or anything. It was very cordial when I left. It was a personal decision that I made, what's best for my family and I. And I'm not leaving Phuket. I'll still be here. And it's a very exciting time. I've it's been a couple of years in the making, but really in the last year it kind of came to fruition. And it's exciting. It's a little bit scary, going into the unknown, but that's, many times in my life I've, had new chapters and been very excited for it. And I'm very excited for this new chapter. And again, it's, my time at Tiger as a coach, I grew a lot as a coach, and the opportunity that I was given that, honestly, while I was still fighting, and then I kind of stopped fighting to focus on coaching, and it was a great opportunity that the management had given me there, and I'm very thankful for that. And I hold Tiger dearly to me because it really helped me with my career, and I met a lot of great people. I worked with a lot of great people, and it was it was cool to to be able to be a small part of that gym, and to I think we had a lot of good years recently, and and it's it just got to it got to where I needed to move on and do again what's best for my family, and I'm really excited for what the future holds, and there will be more news, in months to come. But it's a very exciting time, and I'm very thankful for the time that I spent at Tiger Muay Thai, and everyone at the gym. I have a lot of really close friends there, and I'm close with a lot of the fighters and stuff. So it was a very good time. But as we all know, you're either evolving or you're dying. So it's time to keep going.
Definitely, man. Everybody has to take the next steps, right? You cannot stand still. You know what I mean? You did a great job at Tiger. So many fighters coming out of there. So many guys that are, and girls too, right, in the UFC right now that that cut their teeth at that gym. Jordi is close with a lot of them, right? Jordi is pretty tied in with a lot of the fighters that have ran through there, man. Jordi, how are you doing, man? You just got out of quarantine, right? So you feeling free.
Kind of. Like, we just got out of quarantine, out of the 2-week one, and then I came back home to Brisbane, and we were in a snap lockdown for 3 days. So I went from one quarantine into another, and I was just looking out the window and it's hammering down rain. So like, even if I wanted to go outside, I can't. But I'd rather be, sitting in my own office, in my own apartment, than sitting in a random hotel. So sort of free.
For sure, for sure. George, now going back to you, what's gonna happen with your brother? Is he's in the States right now, but like, is he still working with Tiger, or what's happening with him?
No, he's gone as well. So the Hickman Brothers are officially done there. But Frank's been gone for, I don't know how many months now, Jordi. It's been a while.
A while.
He went to help the boys, and I think he went for, honestly, I don't even remember when this was, but I think he went for Israel and Brad and Volk when the whole COVID situation happened. And then, and he stayed there and helped a few other like fighters that we know that have, come through Phuket before. And then he was obviously there for Israel's title defense at middleweight and Brad's most recent win. And he's helped a few other, like he's been in Vegas helping some fighters, and he's going to be in the States for a while, and then he'll eventually migrate back over this way to Southeast Asia.
Definitely. Now, Jordi, you were in the States for, I believe, UFC 260. What was it? 262 or 263, right? You were there?
Yeah.
So you were doing your thing over there, and how was it, man? How was the whole week? It was a successful week for every fighter you helped out. What? Brad, Leon, and Israel, right? Am I missing anybody?
Yeah, just the 3 guys for that week for 263.
All right. So what was the environment like? What was the atmosphere like in that fight week for you?
It was cool, man. Like, it was cool being in Arizona because, like George said, we all went over. I think it was in February or like start of March. That's when Frankie must have got there. So he's been there for a while. But when we did that in Vegas, you're in like the Vegas quarantine bubble. So it's a bit of a different experience. So it's like you've got like the non-bubble hotel and then the bubble hotel, and the UFC run like quite a tight ship like that. But this was in Arizona, so it was a bit more not relaxed. Like they had a lot of good COVID protocols in, but like you could still, like before the fight week started, get out and walk around, and it was really cool. But yeah, it was a good fight week. Like all the boys came in pretty in really good shape, and none of those guys are really tough weight cuts. Like Brad cuts a bit of weight, but we've worked together for a couple of years now and really like got that process down pat. So like in terms of stress levels, it wasn't too crazy, but it was a good week. It was a successful week too, and good results all around. So it was a good time.
All right. Well, speaking of Brad, man, there's a question already about Brad and his future, and I feel like who better to ask? 2 guys that know Brad really well. So let's start with you, George. The question is right here from Jose Flores, Mr. Hickman. He calls you Mr. Hickman. That makes you feel old as shit, huh? He says, what can we expect Mr. Riddell fight again, and who would be an ideal opponent for him? What do you think?
Well, I'm not his coach, so I don't know when Brad is expected to fight again. I know Brad very well. I mean, I remember shooting a technique like breakdown with him probably 6.5 years ago in Phuket. And Brad, like when he first kind of started wrestling and he was still like just kickboxing, and he said, I remember he was like, man, I like wrestling, but UFC, he was like, I'm just going to go to the UFC one day, win the belt, and then throw it on the ground and go back to kickboxing. But no, I think Brad, it's great to see him now in the top 15, as he should be. And I think that I'd like to see him fight Gillespie. Like, I know that he wants that fight. I personally, as well as my younger brother, have both wrestled Gregor. Frank had wrestled him in freestyle and had a close match with him. I wrestled Gregor my sophomore year. I'm not ashamed to say this. And I got the shit kicked out of me. Like I think tech pinned me. And he was a very, very good wrestler. And he was a freshman at that time. So he's a very good wrestler. However, wrestling in MMA is not the same as it is in collegiate or freestyle wrestling. And Brad has good anti-wrestling, and he's one of the best strikers in the world. So it makes for a very exciting matchup. And obviously, myself and my brother have a very close relationship with not only Jordi, but with City Kickboxing as well. And I know that those are some of the best coaches in the world. And for myself personally, I'm very like cordial with a lot of the coaches that I see, at events and whatnot. But I do have personal relationships with, Eugene and the other coaching staff. And I can say that Eugene is one guy that, for me, I do look up to him, and I look to him for advice and stuff. And I hold him in a very high regard and have a lot of respect for him. So I know that the game plan that they will have for whoever it is, whether it's Gregor or somebody else in the top 15 that's, above Brad, I think that they will have a very great game plan and secure the win. I mean, Brad is one, like, there's a lot of fighters, right? There's a lot of fighters in the UFC. There's a lot of fighters in other promotions. And when I was fighting, for me, it was like wrestling. Like, I like training. I didn't mind being out there, but for me, the most gratifying moment was like for my ego when I would win, And I think a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people were like that. But I didn't necessarily enjoy, that 15 minutes or however long I was in the cage. It wasn't like an enjoyable thing. It was more like, I want to finish this guy as fast as possible and get out, uninjured. Whereas Brad is, I think, amongst all of these people fighting MMA, Brad is one of the rare people that thoroughly enjoy being in there and smacking somebody in the face and, smiling when he gets hit back, or like, he really enjoys fighting. And there's a lot of people that can get in there and fight, and that takes a lot, but there's few people that thoroughly enjoy being in there in the heat of the moment, punching and receiving punches and kicks and elbows. And Brad is one of those people. So I think that whoever it is, I think we will continue to see Brad Riddell rise up the rankings.
Jordi, when you look at the top 15, right, and you think of matchups, and when you look at Riddell's, arsenal, his skill set, I believe he should fight Tony Ferguson next. Like, that's the fight. If you want to build off, like, off a name, Gregor Gillespie's a good matchup, but Tony Ferguson, come on, right? Like, that's a bloodthirsty, like Vikings type of fight. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think if I was telling Brad to do that, you'd want that as a pay-per-view, so you're getting pay-per-view points because everyone be tuning into it. But so yeah, it's a bit funny me answering this because I know who they're trying to tee up for Brad next. But and I know who Brad wants to go next, and Brad has said it many times that he wants to get that Gregor fight, and I think it speaks volumes to the type of athlete that Brad is, why he wants to get it, because we all believe as well, like George said, Gregor, maybe Islam, but we don't really know what Islam's doing in this division. But Gregor is probably the strongest wrestler. He's the best pedigree of wrestler in this lightweight division. And Brad, like being the elite level fighter that he is, he wants to get that over Gregor to kind of make a statement to the division that, yeah, I can take down the best like wrestler and I'm the best striker in this division. So like, what can you throw at me type thing. So, and I've seen what Brad's game plan was for Gregor when he was drilling it that first week when his fight got called off. And man, I want to see that fight. Like, I want to see how that comes down. And I think it would just be such a technical battle between them, like who could pull off their game plan. And Gregor's such a cool dude and he's so competitive as well. I think that would be a firecracker of a fight.
Yeah, definitely. Well, George, there's John Nuts here, and he has a question for you. The Hickman brothers, would you ever fight another two-brother combo in Fight Circus? I think that we're looking for something like that. What would the brothers be?
John Nuts always fishing for that. I think that, yeah, John, you pay me a lot of money, mate, and I'm sure that we can make that happen. He's got Fight Circus now. It seems like they got a lot of sponsors and a lot of money behind that. But yeah, my fighting days are done. But for some kind of freak show like that, I think I could get involved in that.
No, like what is it? The leg wrestling? Is that what it's called? You wouldn't do that?
The leg rest? I don't even know what leg wrestling is, but I'm sure that John Nutt has like some type of. I'm sure that fight two other brothers in Fight Circus and probably like tied together, or one hand tied behind the back, or shackles on your ankles or something like that. But yeah, possibly.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question for all of us. Like, we could answer this. It says, Ugur, he says, my question is, who do you think has the best pace between Lesnar, Francis, I'm believing it's Francis Ngannou, and Curtis Blades? We'll start with you, Jordi. Pace wise, who do you think has the best pace?
That's a hard one. I think it's hard to not give it to Brock. I think Brock's just a super freak of an athlete, right? Like he's crazy. I think if you're talking about like other attributes, like Francis's power is crazy, but I guess he's assuming like pace you can maintain in the fight. I'd probably say Brock, but you guys would know better than me. I'm the nutrition guy, so.
Oh,
Nutrition
you
goes
know a
into
lot.
that.
Yeah.
I don't know, Curtis Blades. I don't really pay attention to heavyweight that often, unless it's like the main event. But I don't. Yeah, I mean, Brock Lesnar hasn't fought in years, and I don't think he's a credible source either, with his shady past of drug tests. Who knows? You know why he had a good gas tank, but no, I don't know. Curtis Blades.
Curtis Blaze, most likely Curtis Blaze, right? Because he does have the like when you could like wrestle for like round after round after round, you know, that shows that you do have a pretty decent pace. Lesnar, I don't even know if he went. I don't even know what was his longest fight. Maybe 3 rounds, I believe.
Yeah,
2 rounds. I don't even know. I don't think he's fought that many rounds or he's ever even went to the decision. So we'll see what happens. Well, we got another question for Jordi. Here we go. Any hint on who the UFC is trying to book? He just talked about it, Jose. He said that he knows, and they're thinking about Riddell, right? So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah. So we'll get to keep the questions coming. You know what I mean? Anything. We got two professionals here. Ask some good questions, right? I'm the idiot, so I'll just chime in from time to time. So I got a couple things that I wanted to discuss with you guys. Is the first thing is I'm gonna put this up on the screen. Is Derrick Lewis and Ciryl Gane, right? 2 guys, top of the division, number 2, number 3 ranked in the heavyweight division. They're gonna have an interim title fight in Houston. Francis Ngannou, he just won the belt 3 months ago. Just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this. Jordan, what do you think, man? If you're in that position, like if you're in Francis's shoes, how do you feel about this situation?
Yeah, you wouldn't be too stoked. I guess I'm in the same boat with George. Like, I don't pay heaps of attention to the heavyweights because if there's one weight division that don't take their dieting all that serious, it's the heavyweights. So, but yeah, I haven't actually read too much about it. I saw that Francis, did he put up a statement yesterday that him and his manager were like, "What's going on? I don't know." And then Dana said that, "Nah, you guys know exactly what's happening." But I think it's very strange that they're doing the interim and like. How long did it take them when Khabib was like retired but not retired, and they kept him as the champ, and they never really did the interim, and they just kept dragging it out. But for this, they just seem to have done it like at the drop of a hat. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be too happy if I was Francis, to be honest.
George, what do you think? What do you think about the just the title fight? You guys said already that you don't really pay attention to the heavyweight division, which is very disappointing to me as a fan. Like these guys don't pay attention.
I watch it. I just don't follow it closely.
Okay, so if you're Derrick Lewis, if you're Ciryl Gane, of course you're like, I'm gonna fight for the interim title. Why not, right? But a lot of people are saying,
you're the guy that's coming up, you're going to try to take any opportunity, especially when you're that close to get to the title. I think, but I think that I agree with Jordi. Like like how long did Khabib have it? And 3 months is kind of quick. In my opinion, I think that like if they're going to give interim titles like that, like think about Peter Yan and Sterling. Like Sterling, if he can't fight right now, how long ago was that fight? Like look, yeah, Peter Yan did something illegal or whatever, but I don't think that like it shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. And I don't think that like I don't think anybody, when you're fighting for a title, especially to retain your title, you're going to illegally purposely do something like that, or like consciously do something like that and cost yourself, the title and all that money as well. So they should do an interim title before, between Peter and somebody else, and then they go back if Sterling can't fight, if he's injured or whatever the reason is, because I don't know. But as an example, like that surely has been longer than 3 months. So if you're going to do that to Ngannou, then let's get Peter Yan another interim title fight.
Well, Sterling and Jan, they fought on March 6th, and Francis won the title on March 27th. So you do make a point right there. Why don't they have an interim title if Sterling can't fight? And he's clearly out with an injury, right? So why not? And then the circumstances surrounding that, I could see that point. But if you look at this article, right, it says right here, once they announced the fight, right, the interim title fight, Markel Martin, right, Ngannou's manager or agent, I don't know what's the difference, but this comes as a complete shock to make an interim title so soon. If you look at the history of this division, it comes as a surprise. Francis is just now returning to the States to begin training, and he just won the title 3 months ago. We're unsure of what the reasoning is behind this, but we hope to get clarity soon and figure out something with the UFC soon. At the end of the day, they're in control of these decisions. And then he did put up the manager did put up an Instagram post not too long ago, like getting into more detail about this. But one thing about him, and I think like it makes him different, is that he is part of CAA. Yeah, the CAA management group, right? Which is not a sports management group. They manage everything. They're pretty powerful. They're pretty big, right? So I think he has some power that other managers don't, right? Like if you're just focused on MMA fighters, your power is somewhat limited compared to him, right? So I guess he could say these things, come out public, and the backlash wouldn't be as much, right? But yeah, it's very confusing why they would do that to Francis Ngannou. You know what I mean? Like they never stripped Stipe, right? Stipe didn't fight for like a year, I believe, right? Ngannou waited so many times to fight Stipe. So it's an interesting dynamic of what they're doing. Is it because of money? Is it because of because I know Houston was the date that they offered Francis. I believe that was like offered. The reason why is because they want Derrick Lewis to fight in Houston. He's from Houston. They just signed like a events deal the UFC did with Houston and the Toyota Center. So it makes sense why they would put, them there. The other question is, Jordan, Amanda Nunes is defending the title against Juliana Pena. Amanda Nunes is probably one of the greatest fighters ever, right? Not even men and female, just ever, right? Just look at her resume. And they're going to bump her for interim title, man. How disrespectful is that? Is it disrespectful?
For sure, man. I think she's the GOAT. Like, I think she's just done so much for the sport. And like with her fights too, man, it's not like they're overly close as well, like she just dominates. Like, and where else do you see that? But yeah, I know. Yeah, I know there's a lot of internal politics. I don't know if you get in trouble saying this, but within the UFC, so like I can kind of see if they're offering dates to Francis or if there's disputes about money or where they want to fight. Like the UFC is a business and they're a pretty like slick run business. So I don't know for a fact that there's only so many offers they're going to make until they just say, see you later, we'll do something else. So maybe that was the case and Francis is asking for more cash or wouldn't settle down on a date. And maybe that was it, but who knows? All the interim title thing is like, it's very confusing for me. I think it's a bit of a weird one with the sport.
Yeah, interim titles are just like a safety latch on a parachute, right?
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's like whenever they need to use it, they're gonna pull that thing, and then and you know what though, with the interim title fight, interim champions, they could continue defending their interim title while the champion is just sitting there, and then eventually, if they don't follow what the UFC wants, they'll just strip them, and then they'll make the guy that was carrying the interim title the champion, right? They did it to who? Renan Barão. Renan Barão was the interim champion for a long time. He was defending the title, right? And then eventually, I believe, did he fight Cruz? No, he never fought Cruz. They just stripped Cruz and then just made Renan Barão the champ, right? So it's weird, man. But it is a machine, and a machine with so much power, right? And George, what do? Would you have done the same thing if you were the machine? You know what I mean? Like you have to put on events, you have pay-per-views that you have to put on, and you have to put on big fights. So do you like that interim title, or do you say let's scrap all interim titles, never have them?
I think there's like a time and a place for it. I don't really think that I think we're all in agreement that like nobody expected Ngannou to get stripped, but yeah, I mean, I think like Jordi said, there was probably some shenanigans that nobody knows about, going on with like management and with the UFC, something between them. Maybe not so much with like the fighter, but more with like management in the UFC. But who knows?
All right, something that's just off topic has nothing to do with with fighting, right? It kind of annoys me, but I like to get your guys' views on it, right? Have you seen these shoes that they're selling now? They're like shoes, but the back of the shoe is missing, and it's like a shoe slipper.
No.
Have you guys seen
No.
this? You've
Yeah,
never
it's
seen this,
On
dude.
Vans,
Yeah, they sell them in Vans too. Like almost every like company sells them now.
those have been around for a long time. Like the slip on
Man,
Vans.
those piss me off, man. When I see people wearing that shit, like I'm like, what is it? It's like a mullet in a way, right? It's like, what is going on? Like why you have a shoe in the front and then a slipper in the back? Do you have these shoes? Jordan must not have them because he doesn't know what I'm
Man,
talking about.
I'm trying to Google. I'm like Googling shoe slippers, and I'm like, what's going on here?
I see it now all the time, and I'm just like, why don't you just wear a slipper or just wear the shoe? Like, why do you have to have a shoe slipper? You know what I mean? Is that fashion? Am I missing out on something? George, you're more fashionable than I am, right? You're into the fashion stuff. Like, you dress nice. Do you have those shoes?
Oh, thank you. No, I do not have those shoes, but I have thought about buying the Vans slip-ons.
Oh my god!
But
go ahead.
that's it. But no,
Right.
I don't own a pair.
But why would you buy something that's like like a shoe, but not a shoe? You know, like what would be the reason for it? Is it fashionable? Do you think? Is that the new trend?
I don't know because I've only seen them in Vans. I haven't seen them in anything else.
Dude, I've seen them for every like Nikes. I've seen them for all the brands now. Like I'm just like I keep seeing them everywhere, and I'm just like it just makes me angry. I don't know why. Like there's an inner anger. Like you know me, I'm a pretty calm guy, right? I don't really trip out too much, but like little things like that just make me angry, and I want to go up to them and ask them like, is it a shoe or is it a slipper?
Is it big in Korea?
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of fashion in Korea.
of course, right? So I don't know, man. I just wanted to bring that up. I just wanted to get your guys' viewpoints on that shoe slipper. Maybe Jordan's gonna go buy a pair now because he's probably seen some nice ones. I don't know, right? Who knows? Maybe I'll be wearing some in 6 months. I don't know. People change, right? We contradict ourselves all the time. But yeah, man, these damn shoes. But anyways, transitioning from something that pisses me off to someone that got pissed off, right? Was Joe Schilling. And I know. Do you guys know Joe Schilling? George, have you have any like interactions with Joe Schilling in the past?
No, I've never met him.
What about you, Jordan?
No, I've never had any interaction.
Okay, then of course, then we got some neutral viewpoints on this, right? Like we know. So I'm gonna play the video of the incident right for you guys right now, and then I wanted to just get your guys' views on the technique, right? And then overall, like, you know, what just happened, right? So let's look at this. So let's play this on here. All right, so he gives him a nice, what is that? A right hand with the left, like shovel uppercut or whatever. And what do you think? What like what's your when you saw this for the first time, George? What was your reaction to this?
Yeah, I saw it the other day. I just thought like I didn't even know it was Joe Schilling at first. I thought it looked like him, but I wasn't sure, and I didn't like care enough to like try to dive into it and find out. But I don't know. Me personally, whenever I'm out, like which is not very often, but I don't like the last thing I want to do is fight somebody or hit somebody. Like that's just not who I am, especially if I wasn't going to get paid for it and then have to deal with like backlashes, especially like how well known he is. I can only imagine, you know, what the backlash is, but I don't know. I would have just been like, it depends on what they got, you know, what happened. Maybe something like transpired, you know, an hour beforehand and I don't know. But if the guy just like said something smart to him, me personally, I would have just been like, mate, like, fuck off, and then just kept it moving, and that would have been it. But yeah, who knows? But it definitely would have not. I would have not have done that. It's not my. If I'm out in an establishment where it looks like a bar, like I'm trying to have a couple beers, eat some wings, and like relax, not get into a fist fight with somebody, especially a guy in a suit that now looks like he is rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis. Hey, my biggest question is, where's the dude's homies and stuff? Like, at least you gotta like back your homie. Like, was he dolo in the bar? Like, do you ever go to the bar by yourself? Come on, like this dude. I don't know what was happening right here, but man. But the thing is, like, when you look at it, does it almost seem like, Jordan, that Joe Schilling walked that path for a purpose? It kind of does in a way, dude. Like, he already
does
looked.
A bit, eh?
Yeah,
it does. Like George was saying, like it'd be cool. Like I think to get the full story, you'd want to see what led up to this, because like George said, like everyone I train with, like all the fighters I work, everyone says it. It's like you get beat up every single day of your life, multiple times a day. When you're going out to a bar, the last thing you want to be doing is fighting. Like you do it already so much in your day to day as it is. So like, why would you do it? But most fighters I know, like you'd have to push them pretty far to get to this point. You'd have to really, really tick them off a bit. Especially like, I don't know, when I first saw this, I thought this guy was like the manager of the restaurant or like the busboy or something, just by like the way that he's dressed. So I was thinking like maybe, I don't know, old mate like didn't give him a good tip or something, or there's like an altercation about the food and old mate just flipped out. I was like, what a dick. But like, I don't know, you'd have to see what was happening. But yeah, like you said, like he's just kind of standing there. Maybe he's with this girl. But when I saw it, when he was doing this as well, I thought he was talking about him getting dropped, and he like got up and was talking to the girl about it. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, this is before. It's like maybe he was like foreshadowing it. I don't know. It's a weird one.
And the shirt that he's wearing doesn't help at all, because I believe it says like cage something and parking lot, wherever.
Some very aggressive.
Yeah, but Joe Schilling's a aggressive dude, man. He's been in the past, like I've heard stories of like him beating up people in the street anyways, you know what I mean? So it's not anything new. Yeah, so it's a bad look for Joe Schilling, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? But that's just who he is, though. Like sometimes you have to respect who people are, but this is kind of going too far, right? Like you're a professional fighter, you could probably beat the shit out of 99% of the people in the world, but you want to go beat up a guy in a bar that's apparently like clearly drunk, right? And he's probably weighs like 120 pounds, nasty and wet, right? It's just like
he has no idea how to defend himself.
Exactly, right? It's just like he went up there and did that. Did you see the flinch that he did? He did a little feint on him. That's why I think he reacted like that too. Because if you look at the video, like
I didn't see that.
Yeah, watch. He kind of feints at Joe. Watch when he does this. Watch. He feints at him like that. You see that?
Okay, maybe I don't know. Maybe naturally he reacted that way, but I don't know. One time I was on PP Island for a birthday, and some guy was, I don't know what kind of drugs he was on, but he was like smacking me in the head, and Alex was standing next to me, and I just like looked at him, and I was like, it was like, I don't know, 11:30 at night. We were obviously out like partying and having a good time. It was our friend's birthday, and he was like whacking me in the head. And after about the fourth time, I just looked at him and I was like, mate, please, I really don't want to have an altercation, and you seem like a nice guy, but please stop slapping me in the head. And he's like, oh, all right, mate. And then he just stopped hitting me, and then I just cracked on with the rest of my night. But that's more me. I'm very laid back. I don't like confrontation. So, yeah.
Henry Ford, the inventor of the automobile, is in the chat, and he's saying that he met Joe Schilling in 2006. He acted like a hard ass when he asked for a picture. Man, Joe Schilling, how you gonna act like a hard ass to Henry Ford, the guy that invented the automobile? Come on, man. Like fans, they ask for a picture, right? It's like you should enjoy that. You should embrace it's not like you're like Madonna or something, right? It's not like you're Britney Spears where there's like 50 people, 1,000 people in line asking for a picture. It's like a couple people in the street, man. I feel like you should embrace your fame somewhat, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, we're like Israel, for example. When last time that when I was in New Zealand with Loma, like I think the last time that I had hung out with Izzy was maybe like 2 years before when he was in Thailand, and his life had like completely changed by that point. Like when I was with Loma, for her fight in New Zealand when Brad and stuff fought, and I remember like a couple of times like him like coming up and talking to me, and I'm like friends with the guy, but I didn't even want to take his time because I saw in those days how much his life has changed, and how famous he is, and like that. I just remember saying to, I think it was Woody, I was like, man, I don't know if I could deal with that, like that being that famous, and I don't think Joe Schilling is like nearly as famous as Israel, but he still like gives people time, and he publicly says like, hey, if you're not a dick, then I'll take a picture with you and stuff like that. Just like have some respect and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, like asking somebody for a photo, like I don't know, I would give it to him.
of course, man. Of course, you can give them the photo. I'm pretty sure. Like Jordan, you were there for Fight Week. You've been around many Fight Weeks with Israel. Like he's probably the most famous. You consider him the most famous person around you, right?
Oh yeah, he's a superstar, but he's not just like a superstar in our part of the world. He's like a global superstar.
Yeah.
Like I remember similar to George. I remember the first time like I kind of clicked with that and realized like we were in Vegas and we were like driving down the strip and he was just on every third billboard and you're like, oh shit, like you kind of forget because you're like it's just Israel, but then like you're like, oh yeah, and then you're just like, oh wait, like Israel's massive, like he's a huge thing, and you do like because you're just hanging out and you're doing your job and blah blah blah, and it's quite a small circle, but then you're like. You go outside like your little circle and I don't know, you go to get lunch or something like that all of us wouldn't think about. But then, like George said, there's just 20 people. Like you go sit down, they're like, oh my God, fingers everywhere and running around. And it would be exhausting. Like I know Israel on the recent trip, like he's really good with it. Like he has so much time and it's like so much patience for him and so much time for his fans. Like it's like admirable how far he goes for his fans. But on the other side of that, he's really good too. Like I know on the Sunday after the fight, some guys came up and he was just like, hey man, I'm trying to chill. Like, I just want to hang out just like what you're doing. It's a Sunday. Like, I just want to have some food with the guys and whatnot. Like, come over here, I'll shake your hand. But like, I don't really feel like doing the picture thing, but like, man, appreciate your support. And I was like, wow, that's like, what a cool way to go about it. Like but he's just such like a good guy and a professional like that. Whereas I feel like old mate who just punched the old busboy, straight to Jupiter. I feel like it's just a personality thing, right? Like some people aren't made to be in the public eye, and like fighting attracts like that type of person. Like most of the guys who do fighting aren't that type of person, but like there's always that one rotten banana in the bunch, right? And I think Joe Schilling was that, and then someone just so happened to have a phone, because I just don't know anyone, like no one in my immediate group, and like George probably the same, like that are like professional fighters. I don't think they would do that. Like George said, you just de-escalate and get out of there.
Yeah,
I saw a video of Justin Bieber yesterday. Actually, I know this is like ridiculous. He's obviously not a fighter, but he was outside of his it looked like New York City to me, like whatever it was, his where he lives at, and like you can see in the video like there's a bunch of like girls lined up, and he gets out of like I don't know, it looked like an SUV, I can't remember, and he had some security with him. And these girls were like, please, can we have a photo? And he was just like, very calmly, he looked at them and he was like, listen, oh, sorry, I was just looking at Chan Reach. What's up, Chan? He was just like, listen, like, this is where I live. Like, this is my place of peace. Like, please, like, just respect my space. And he was like very polite about it. And then the girl was like, can you take a photo? And he was like, as I said, like, this is my place of peace. Like, I just want to go inside of my home and relax. So, no, I'm not going to take a photo, which I totally understand. Can you imagine every time you come home having 25 people outside of your house wanting to take a damn photo? Like, even, the nicest people would probably eventually snap with that.
Oh, of course, man. Imagine if Joe Schilling was as famous as like Israel. Like he'd have lawsuits flying around all over. That's what's happening. I think that's what's basically happened to Conor right now. You know what I mean? I think that's what we've seen throughout the years with Conor. Like Conor is a guy, he loves the fans, but that fame came really fast. The money came really fast, and and sometimes you snap. And I think he snapped a couple of times. Israel, no snapping, right? So hope it seems like he's learned from the people that came before him. I think that's what makes him different, right? Like he learned from the.
I heard him say one time that I don't remember how long ago or what interview it was, but like Izzy said something like, and it's so true, you know. I've tried to explain this to like Loma, and she's not famous, and she's not at the same, like, you know, maybe one day, but nowhere near that. But I was explaining to her because a lot of times, like, because MMA is like very new for her, so I was explaining to her, and I use a lot of times Israel and Brad as examples because she personally knows both of them, and so I guess it kind of can make sense for her. And I just said, like, I told her one time that because I had watched an interview in Israel, like, nobody teaches you how to be famous. Like, there's no like handbook of, you know, how to react when somebody asks for a photo, or like, you know, or what to say in the public, what not to say, or, you know, things like that. And it's so true. Like, people like fans don't think about what they're dealing with. Like, they're just average. They're just normal people like we are. They're obviously above average people because of, you know, their accolades and things, but like, and sport, but nobody teaches you like how to deal with that. And that, like, everybody in the world has their own problems and, you know, mental things that they're dealing with and family issues and stuff. And when people look at somebody like Israel or, you know, Conor McGregor, they don't know like what kind of stuff they're dealing with. But that like really like made it like hit home when he said like, nobody teaches you how to be famous and to deal with this kind of stuff. Like, can you imagine having 6 million followers or 5 million followers, whatever it is, or Conor with like 30 some million followers? Like Jordi said, like, Izzy's a global superstar. Like, airport, Burger King, anywhere you go, somebody's going to recognize you and want to take a photo. And like, in an average day, if you're, you know, however many places you go to, how many people is that are going to bombard you? And some of them are going to be very respectful. Some of them aren't. Some may just, you know, point and say hello or, you know, shout your name out. Some may want photos. But like I said that to Loma, like, you know, you're going to have to learn to, you know, to deal with things. And in the internet now is like giving power to people to, you know, to write ridiculous things that they would never say in person. And it's like, it's a very strange time to be, you know, somebody that's very well known throughout the world.
Yeah. Before we move on from this bar fight topic that we've been discussing, and then fame, and then we escalated into like Justin Bieber denying females pictures, which
I do like a bit of Bieber.
Yeah, Bieber. Hey, Bieber got skills, man. His music is good. I ain't gonna lie. You know what I mean? But yeah. But the thing is, like, I remember, like, I heard this story of a fighter, right? Because a lot of people test fighters, right? So I heard the story about the fighter. He, like, someone came to test him. You know what I mean? Like they were out partying or whatever, and then the fighter pulls out his phone and shows the guy that's trying to fight him his highlight reel of knockouts. Like, this is me. Here you go. Look at it. Okay, now do you want to fight? I heard this story, man. I'm like, that's actually a good thing to like show somebody before they actually want to fight you, right? Kind of keep calm and show them like, hey, this is me. Watch this first, and then okay, would you still want to fight me? And if the dude does, man, then you might have to put your hands on him, right? Like Jordan, right? You got to do it, right?
Isn't that like I don't know, some taekwondo or karate rule thing they teach you? Is like you're meant to like get in your stance and like tell them your qualifications and be like, I'm warning you, I'm a dangerous weapon. But I suppose, yeah, I don't know, man. Like I've been out. I won't say too much because our crew's pretty. But like some of the guys have told me, like, yeah, guys have come up and they've been like, hey, man, like I won't lie to you, like I'm a UFC fighter, like. Probably not in your best interest. Like, yeah, if you really want to, like, we could, but I don't want to. You probably don't want to, like, and then it fizzles out, like, because it's an ego stroke, right? It's just dumb males, like us dumb males with our tiny brains. Like, you have a few beers and everything switches off, and the monkey brain comes in. We're just like, ooh, you know, let's fight type thing. And yeah, like I said earlier, I think people who do it all the time are just not interested. But it's like the person that like maybe never thrown a fight. Yeah.
Both
yeah,
of
and
you
like
guys,
you get
like you just know, like whether you've trained for, you know, a year in BJJ. To me, if you've done something like that, you can beat up a lot of people in the normal population that are going to mess with you. And like, have you ever seen that meme where it's like what most men, or I think it says something like most men, what they think they look like when they're fighting, and then it has another one and it's like this is what they actually look like, and it's hilarious, but it's so true. Like I was training this guy recently, and he's a cracker. He's so funny. He's from England, and like he goes all right on the pads, and he was like, he told me he's like funny as hell. He's like, he reminds me of my brother because he's constantly like, if he's on the phone before I train him, he'll just be walking laps around wherever he's at. He can't sit still. And he was like, look, mate, he was like, you know, I'm always good for a punch on in his like English accent. And he was like, you know, I think I'm the shit, but mate, I know I'm not the shit. Like, I know actually when it comes down to it, I'm up for it, but I'm probably going to get my ass kicked. He was like, but I think that's what most people think in their head, that they can actually do this. And then I come to a place like this, because it was that Tiger, he was like, I come to a place like this, and then I see all these people, and it just puts it in a perspective that the normal person walking around, even though they think they can fight, they can't.
Yeah, it's definitely true, man. And let's turn the topic back. You know, Henry Ford has a question for you guys. It says, do they think, let's talk about you guys, Jan Blachowicz is underrated? Do you think Jan Blachowicz is underrated, Jordan?
I think to the most people, they underrate him. Like I've got, you know, I'm going to take my experience when Israel went up and fought him. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was probably one of the best executed game plans in like modern MMA. Like I think I came on this show, John, and we were talking about how I thought like we don't need to put on muscle because we think Israel's just going to outskill him. And like, and that's like, I have this conversation all the time. It's like when you're cutting weight to get that size advantage, it's fine being like the bigger guy if you can enforce your game plan. Like if you're bigger and you're stronger, that's fine in fighting if you can put yourself in a position to be bigger and stronger. And I thought Jan, like, I remember watching that fight, and obviously like we weren't too stoked with the performance, but thinking, holy smokes, like that was like a near perfect fight from Jan, and how good was it, and how well did he execute that fight? And I think, I think he gained a lot of people's respect, but I think he in the public perception probably is. I think the light heavyweight division right now, I think John Jones probably left it a bit in a tussle, and I think everyone gets compared to John Jones, who's that, you know, one in however many thousand fighters that come along. But I think Jan is extremely talented, probably deserves a bit more credit than what he gets.
George, Jan Blachowicz, man, he comes from a smaller camp. His coaches, you got to respect the coaches, dude. Like they came in and they had the game plan, and Jan went in there and they made Jan believe the game plan, and he went in there and executed it, right? So you got to give like at least, I don't know, 50% of the credit to the coaches, right? Like you're a coach, so you're probably going to say yes, right? Like I think you should, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know about like what I'm giving credit, but the coaches are definitely like, you know, I agree with everything Jordi said. And they are just a small gym, but so is City Kickboxing. Like every gym's a small gym until you produce one of those athletes. And sometimes as a coach, maybe you get lucky. Maybe you're not the best coach. And I'm not saying that about his coaches at all, because I do think that they're good coaches. And you just have like a freak of nature. But I think that his coaches, they're definitely smart. And I agree. Like I think that in the public's eye, in the MMA world, like he is a bit like, maybe he has gained some respect, is a bit underrated, but like I know going into that fight, and I'm sure Jordi would agree, and he knows better than I do, but you know, I don't think Israel or Eugene or any other coach on that staff was taking him lightly. Look, the worst thing in this game that you can do is take somebody lightly, whether you're, you know, minus 400 or, you know, you're supposed to win, or you're the, you know, huge underdog. It doesn't, like, I've said this to fighters before when I've had them like be like, oh, these are the odds. Like, what? Like Loma, for example, looked at the odds of her last fight and she was a big favorite. Because in Thailand, everything is off of gambling. Like the Muay Thai, like they pay attention to the odds. They fight. Like, could you imagine an MMA looking over at your corner and being like, and your coach being like, oh, just throw a couple of teats out there, don't finish them, because of the gambling and stuff. Like it dictates fighting here. So she was like looking at the odds, and I was like, hey, don't look at that. And she was like, why? And I was like, because it doesn't matter. This is MMA. Anything can happen. Like this sport is like, it's different. It's very different. Like the striking is different than kickboxing or boxing and Muay Thai. Like everything is different. It's just like organized chaos out there, and just chaos, and anything can happen, you know. Like if you lose concentration and discipline at any second of the fight, it can be ending. So yeah, I mean, I don't take him lightly. I don't think anybody does, and I think that I think that Jan is a very skilled fighter. And if you look, like, when he won the belt, it was what was it like? He was on a losing streak there for a while or something like that, and then he won the belt, or like strung a bunch of wins together, and then like, to me that just means that like maybe he fought some tough competition, maybe he was still coming into his own and like finding himself, because man, MMA is not like where some of like Muay Thai fighters have hundreds of fights. Like, you're improving every time. Like, if you don't have prior experience of somebody like Loma or Israel or Brad, that has a heap of kickboxing fights or Muay Thai or boxing or whatever it may be, like, that's great, because that gives you a lot of experience and ring time. Even wrestling like helps you, I think, as a former wrestler, like with competition, it helps you. A lot of fighters now in this day and age are just MMA fighters. They've never, some of them may not have, a high credential background in another combat sport. And that being out there under the lights, it definitely, in MMA, you're learning every time as you go. And having those backgrounds and, with a lot of performances, that helps as well. But I think that, he was just kind of coming into his own, and now, like, he's confident. His skill has improved heaps from, whenever it was that he first got into the UFC. And yeah, like, he shouldn't be taken lightly. He's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, man. How do you take the legendary Polish power lightly, man? Like, come on, give him some respect. And he's got a good fight coming up. His next title defense. We'll see what happens. Now, since we do have,
Who is that against?
Glover Teixeira.
Oh, okay.
All right. So since we do have Nate Diaz in the chat, we're gonna go to the next topic because George has to go in a few minutes. So I wanted to get his thoughts on this before he, bounces out. He's got, people to see and things to do and all kinds of good stuff. So Nate Diaz, right? Firas Zahabi gives his thoughts on Nate Diaz. He says that, this is a quote from his podcast, I believe. It says, if Nate Diaz was in a fight where there was no time limit, I think he beats 99% of fighters. He says you can't sub Nate Diaz. You can't finish Nate Diaz. The guy doesn't stop walking forward. He puts on volume on you. He is the scariest, in my opinion, street fighter in MMA. Now, street fighter in MMA, to me, that's a stupid thing. Like, street fighter and MMA don't have nothing to do with each other, right? So it's like, what are you even talking about? To be honest with you, this is my thoughts on what he's saying. It's like, there's so many guys in the UFC. Every guy in the UFC could be a street fighter, and they could probably beat 99% of the people in the world in the street fight. And he's saying that he could beat 99% of the fighters. George, come on, tell me what you think about this, and tell me your thoughts on a street fighter compared to an MMA fighter.
Well, I don't think that it's even like. I mean, I don't agree with the statement. Like, what? It's just like coming up, like, like that game you play as a kid, like What If, and you like come up with these like ridiculous scenarios. To me, that's what it is. So, look, I think Nate Diaz is a great fighter. I think, like, before he fought Leon, I thought Leon was going to win, but I didn't think it was going to be like a pushover, because like when you fight somebody like Diaz, you fight a lot of unknowns. Like, you got another guy. Like, I've never experienced another guy talking shit to me in a fight. I never, never had one time a guy talk crap to me during the fight. Imagine like smashing up Nate for like a couple of minutes and then him just like giving you the finger and like, keep coming at you. And like, there's a lot of unknowns. And I think that like when you fight somebody like him, whether you're a big favorite or not, you're going to come up against maybe some adversity, as we saw Leon did when he got cracked at the end. And made it through. But like stuff like that can happen when you fight somebody like him. I think that he's like, he's been in the game. He's a veteran for a very long time. He's a very different character, probably like to deal with. Seems like a cool guy. Wouldn't want to piss him off. But yeah, like Nate's a tough guy. He's one of those guys that's not going to give up. He's hard to finish, and he stays in there the whole time. And as far as like the street fighting thing, yeah, like I've known a lot of like people that were like good street fighters because they had like a lot of power, and but I've also seen some of those same people that I knew that like would wrestle sometimes in high school, and they would cry after they got pinned and give up during the wrestling match. So I don't really rate like being a street fighter. Like, yeah, I mean, there's people that are good at street fighters, but like, this ain't street fighting. This is like, what we do is like evolved from what it was, you know, when I first started it. And it's now people are trained, there's science involved. You got the guru over here helping with nutrition. It's just like, it's not comparing apples to apples, you know? So, yeah, I don't really, I have your opinion of that comment.
And, you know, like, I'm going to make this clear. Like, if you're in a street fight, like, if I was in a street fight with Nate Diaz, I would grab a brick. I would grab a lead baseball bat, a chain. Come on. Like, if I hit Nate Diaz with a brick in the dome, I don't know if he's going to get back up, to be honest with you. A brick. Okay.
Yeah, there's no rules in a street fight.
There's no rules in a street fight. So he could be a zombie coming forward. If I hit you in the head with a brick, a baseball bat, snap your knee with the baseball bat. Like, if I'm in a street fight, I'm not going to fight you with my hands and feet. That's just clear as day. This is street fight. No rules. Like, I'm going to grab something, right? I'm going to grab something and try to smash something. That's my mentality in the street fight, right? I don't want to play around and be like, all right, let's go over to the basketball court because we don't have room right here. No, we're fighting like right there, man. Like, I'm gonna grab something. I'm gonna run you over with my car if we're in a street fight. Like, if I can, right? So it's weird. Jordan, like, how do you maintain a diet for a street fight? No, I'm just kidding. Like, so what are your thoughts on the comments?
Yeah, they've got to eat lots of bricks and then get a brick Brazilian head. But yeah, I agree with George. I read it and I thought, what a nothing statement. Like, what a silly statement. And I think if you look at other sports and like applied that same logic, like you look at, say, NHL hockey or basketball or like American football, and you think of all those games where it came down to the buzzer and it came down to the wire and someone hits a 3 or someone shoots a goal, they score a touchdown. But then the other team goes, oh, no, if I had 10 more minutes, we would have came back and won. It's like, well, you didn't. You didn't have 10 more minutes. And that other team, in the confines of that sport and rules and that game, they came up with a better game plan and they got it done. And that's not what happens in fighting. Like, MMA is a sport and there's a whole structure. George knows this better than anyone, how you game plan out 5 rounds. And I think specifically saying this about Nate and Leon, like, I know Leon's team quite well. Like, I think that's so disrespectful to like Dave, Henry, Nathan, Campy, his whole team, who planned out that 5-round fight and had like a plan for Leon every single round. Like, yeah, it could have gone on forever, but it didn't. It went for 25 minutes and they had a plan for that 25 minutes. And I'd say, given other than the last minute of that fight, like, Leon executed it pretty well. So I just think it was just a weird statement to make. It's like, yeah, of course, like, you could say that in a street fight, but this isn't street fighting, bro. It's MMA. Like, it's a high-level sport, and within, you've got to play by the rules of the confined sport, and that's like why there's genius coaches like George and Eugene and Leon's team, and they come up with game plans to suit the rule set of that sport. Like, that's what sport is.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, like, we love the knockouts, we love the submissions, we love the finishes, right? But then there's something to be said about a well, thought out game plan and the execution of that game plan to where you go in there and completely dominate the fight, right? It's just, you gotta see that. And there's different aspects. There's just more than the corner, right? There's guys that are at the gym that helped out. It's a whole team effort, and you gotta think of it like that sometimes, or you just want to think of it as a street fight.
I think that you're always every fighter is trying to get like that. I would think, like, you're trying to go and finish your opponent, and the whole, like, don't leave it to the judges. Of course, you're not trying to leave it to the judges. You're trying to finish it from every punch and kick and elbow and knee that you throw. You're trying to get out of there. Like, I think that everyone, for the most part, maybe some people enjoy the whole time, but like, look, if you can finish the guy, you're going to finish him and get out of there. But it doesn't work like that in the real world and in the MMA. Like, people are good. It's 2 skilled fighters coming into a sport, a sanctioned event, like Jordi said. And it's like, they're both trained, they have teams behind them. They have training partners and coaches and nutritionists and SNC coaches. And they train, they're training all the time, but they train specifically, normally for 6 to 8 weeks for, a specific person, and that other person is training for that person. And, they're watching film and on the day, just like in any other football game or anything else, like you have a certain amount of time to go out there and either finish the guy or win by a decision. And so, yeah, they're definitely like trying to finish it in that.
Yeah. So I guess Nate Diaz, he has been in like street fights, but they never actually became fights, right? You remember those brawls that happened with like him and Habib's team, where he said he slapped Habib and like he's the winner of. But I understand why Nate would say those things, because he's trying to build hype, right? He's trying to build like this like tension, that will maybe lead to a fight, because he knows that Habib is one of the bigger fights in the promotion. Well, it was one of the bigger fights in the promotion. Now it's not possible, but yeah, it's just I don't know, man. This, like with Joe Schilling and like Firas's statements about street fighting, and like even Michael Bisping. Did you see that thing where he got punched by some dude in the street?
Yeah, I watched his podcast last night, or about 10 minutes of it, when he was talking about that.
And what did he say? Like, I didn't like listen to it. What was the whole situation with that?
They were in New Orleans, his family and him, and he was like, he's got good humor. And he was like, like it was our last night and we were walking back down Bourbon Street. And I told the family, hey, let's like walk one more time down for a good laugh, because there's so much like chaos on that street. I've been to Bourbon Street before. It's like quite entertaining. And he said there was like a group of not high school kids, but maybe a little bit older, of very fit gentlemen, like playing the drums and like a street band. And he started filming, he said the one guy, he didn't think it was the manager, but like one of the guys that was like part of their crew, but wasn't actually playing an instrument, was like, hey, no filming. And he was like, mate, we're on Bourbon Street. I'm going to film. Like, there's no law that I can't film. And he said the guy got kind of aggressive. And he was like, I'm telling you, I'm not going to stop filming. And then he said the guy like hit him with like a left, I don't remember, he said left or right hook. And he said, and he was like, he made it very clear. He was like, listen, I'm not trying to be a tough guy when I say this. Like I think I've earned the right. I've been in there with many tough guys and been hit very hard, at times in my career. And he was like, but it was the softest punch that I've ever felt. Like the guy just like threw it, and he was like, and I literally, my natural reaction was, I just laughed. And he was like, and then like talking about street fights, he was like, and to be fair, he was like, I had my kids and my wife, my family with me. He was like, the last thing that I wanted to do was he was like, I'm glad that I just naturally laughed about it, because he was like, the last thing I would want to do is to get into a street fight. And then this guy's got his whole like posse with him. And then I get jumped and I've got a snare hitting me in the head and somebody's like pounding me out with a drum and whatnot. And yeah, he just said he thought it was better that he just walked away, and he just said he got his family and they walked off. It was quite funny.
Jordi, imagine being that guy, you know what I mean? Like you punch somebody and then he just laughs at you. And then that was the hardest punch that you have, that was your haymaker.
Yeah, imagine that, eh? Like your male brain could not comprehend that type of disrespect to your alpha energy. Eh? Like you just come up and put everything you have in there and someone just laughed at you. I don't know, you kind of have to just put your tail between your legs and walk off, eh? Just, go do some push-ups or something.
No, you got to go home and like turn on the shower and like with cold water and just still with your clothes on, you're crying to yourself, like remember in Ace Ventura when he found out that he kissed the dude or whatever. So
yeah.
you know how it is. Yeah, man, it's crazy. People in the chat come with the questions. There's one for Jordi here. Somebody put up here. So let's put it up here. Put it up, Jordi, on the screen. It says, what's the maximum pounds a fighter? It's probably a question you get a lot, but this guy wants to know, should cut during fight week to not be compromised. That's the key, I think, to not be compromised.
Yeah, that's a good question. We do get it a lot. Short answer is we don't know. We don't know. And I guess second answer is it's different for everyone. So there's like a generic guideline. We say for male fighters, we say in the last 5 days, we're pretty confident we can shift 8 to 10% of water weight in the last 5 days. That's water weight, not body fat. And then for females, we usually aim for about 7 to 8%. So yeah, you can work that out in kilos or pounds, but really we don't know if that's compromising them. We just don't have enough data, or it's hard to say. Like we can do crazy weight cuts with guys, and then they come out the next night and they have a really good performance. And then guys are like, oh, well, maybe it was the crazy weight cut and that's why they had a good performance. Or, vice versa. You could do like a very tough weight cut and then get chinned and knocked out in the first round, and then people associate it. But it's very hard because we don't really have a lot of data to say these guys are being compromised. In saying that, like we do have a lot of good data saying these guys do an extreme and big weight cuts that it really stuffs up your kidneys and your liver. And we're seeing that more and more. So we generally use the guidelines 8 to 10% for dudes, and then about 7 to 8% of their body weight in the last 5 to 7 days. We can do that pretty comfortably. Get them rehydrated, reloaded, and going in there, what we think pretty close to 100 going into the cage.
All right. Well, George, I know you got to go. You're busy. So appreciate you coming on and chatting it up. And we'll see you next time, man. We'll get you back on here.
Thank you, guys.
Adios.
Ciao.
All right. Let's flip it around right here like this. All right, Jordi, now it's you and me. And, I got some stuff. Exactly. And, I got some stuff for you. You know what I mean? And it's not like I'm not prepared. So the first thing I want to get in with you is I'm going to just put this on the screen real fast. Is Sage Northcutt. Have you seen some of the pictures that are coming out? I saw it
only the other day. He's like Super Saiyan 3 looking. Hey.
Yeah. So you see, like, this is Sage at 19 years old, right? Already at 19 years old, he's a specimen. There's clear as day. He's a specimen, right? So they got these videos over the years of his evolution of his body, right? If you go scroll down, MMA Junkie got it. Say same shirt on. This was I don't even know how long ago. It was a little bit ago. And then he clearly looks bigger right here. And then his biceps are ridiculous. And now he looks like this. This is his most recent picture. Like when you see something like that, right? Like, and he just had COVID. Like he had complications from COVID. So what do you like? How is he just like a specimen, man? Like that's how he's built. That's how he's born.
I think it's twofold, well, threefold for Sage. One, genetics. I'm pretty sure I watched a documentary or a YouTube piece about him. His dad is a dietitian, I'm pretty sure, and him and his sister, since they came out of the womb, have been like eating super healthy from whenever. So like obviously that's going to play a big influence in what he looks like, and I think, a lot of fighters, a lot of athletes start taking that stuff seriously when they're 16, 17, 18 or whatever. And then he's got 18 years on top of everyone. Second, it's genetics, because to look like that is very rare. Like I know guys that can get down to 5, 6, 7, 8% body fat and they don't look like that. Like they're lean and they don't have body fat, but they just don't have that frame and that body type and the genetics to look like that. And 3, I think this is probably, I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying this, but one championship I know for a fact, don't hire USADA. They don't have the type of drug testing that the UFC have. And man, I think it's always a bit of a telltale sign that someone might be taking a little bit extra when they've got that big trap to shoulder to bicep ratio, because it's just like genetically for 99% of people, you can't get that naturally. So looking at those photos, like, yeah, it could be he's just like really upped his training and put it on, but I would say, man, he's probably getting a little something, that Mexican go-go juice.
Yeah, man. Sometimes you do need that juice, but yeah, with him, he's clearly one of the best built fighters of all time, like clear as day. And you mentioned that his father was a dietitian, so from a young age, you've seen pictures of him. He's ripped at like 8, 9 years old. So his dad knew like what exact diet that this future fighter, needed to build into someone like who he is right now. Man, is that the future? Do you think? Like, do you see like should parents be doing that for their kids? Like, should parents be having a regiment diet for their kids? You know what I mean? And is it good for their health growing up? Do you think?
Nah, not at all. And we see this quite a bit, and we get messages from parents talking about, their 5, 6-year-old kids and wanting to cut weight or put them on a nutrition program. And long story short, no, it'll hamper their growth and development, because you think about it, they need calories to grow. Like you need calories to support your growth. And during your younger years and adolescence is the biggest growth period in our lives. And so why would you restrict calories? And I've seen it a lot with parents, and we kind of give them all the same speech is like, just let kids be kids. Like, how many chubby kids do you know in high school that came out looking like beasts when they were 22? Like, they naturally grow out of it. You've got to give your body the right fuel for all the hormones to kick in and then for you to develop into your adult body. But I'm not a fan of putting anyone under the age of like 16 on a diet. I think you can teach them like good nutrition principles. Teach them that, hey, like a hamburger has this in it, and it's probably not great that you eat that hamburger and fries and other deep fried stuff every single day of the week, and these are better options. But I don't think you should be saying to them, never ever eat a hamburger and only ever eat salads because you got to go like this. It's like physically it's not good for them. Mentally it just messes them up. Like, let them be. But I think Sage is a very interesting case, and I think you're right that you probably are going to see this more often. And I think especially in MMA, like George said earlier, MMA is becoming like a sport of its own. So you're going to see kids growing up just doing MMA. And I think with that, people are going to be more interested in the healthy eating, more interested in like weights training, which was like something that just never existed in old school MMA. None of the guys used to train weights. You hear it in boxing, they're like, strength conditioning, no way. But I think you're going to start seeing these guys just look better as athletes and develop better as athletes.
Yeah, and like you said, if it becomes like other sports, man, it's gonna be a feeding frenzy. You got like coaches, they because a lot of gyms now they have these kids programs, right? Either it's jiu-jitsu or wrestling or MMA. Some of them have MMA kids programs, and you can kind of spot talent from a young age, right? Flexibility, strength, movement. You could kind of see some kids have that naturally, and then these coaches are gonna be like, hey, they're going to go to the parents and be like, hey, your son or daughter, we can see something in them. You know what I mean? Like, we should start now to develop them into, what, John Jones is right now, or what Israel Adesanya is right now, but better than that. And parents can drink that Kool-Aid real fast, man. Like, it's going to become like other sports, right? Other sports, they already have it. They've been having it for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah. When I graduated, I got a job at a Canadian university, and I knew for a fact that they were within the Canadian and North American system, they were recruiting kids from about 13, 14 into like the talent pool or whatever it was to like feed into colleges and to feed into the NBA and whatnot. So they start them young, and I know that's across the board for the big mainstream sports in the States, baseball, basketball, hockey, American football, the big mainstream, they're getting them young, and they're going out. They have scouts go out and they check these kids out and they put them in training academies and they just give them the best. And I think MMA is becoming that mainstream sport as well. And we're probably going to see that. So it's just like, we're probably going to have lots of Sage Northcutts coming up. And that's the scariest thing. And I say that to the guys that, I train with and other younger guys we work with who are like 20, 21, 22. And they keep saying like, man, I've got time. I've got like 8 years in my prime. It's like, yeah, that's true. You do have time, but you got to remember that there's probably like a 15-year-old kid, 14-year-old kid who started in this kids MMA program. And you talk to like Israels and Brads and things like that. Like Brad Riddell started kickboxing and Muay Thai seriously when he was about 17, 18. He's, 29 now. That's 12 years. It takes about, 10 years to master something. You got a kid who's been doing it from when he's 13, 14, even younger, 12, he's going to hit 22 and he's going to have that 10 years of skill behind him. He's going to be a master at MMA. Plus he's got the extra 10 years of physical development into his prime. What a monster that 32-year-old's going to be. You got 20 years of skill development plus 15 years of good, physical growth. That's going to be a scary and exciting time in MMA, I think.
Yeah, man, it's going to be an incredible time in MMA, man. Like, there's going to be incredible matchups all over the place, every card. There's incredible matchups now every single week, but man, imagine 5-10 years from now the matchups we'll get, because we'll get guys from Russia that were under the same protocol, maybe even a better protocol, right? And against American wrestler that was wrestling since they were 4 or 5, but then they had the nutrition dialed in. And you said it's not good, but people don't listen, right? Half the time, and they're like, we want to build we want to build the Rocky of the generation or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's crazy, man, to think about that, and how, and it just puts into perspective how young this sport is, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's it. Like, I think it's 25 years, 26 years or something of the UFC going around, man. And look how much that's changed. Like, look at UFC 1 and then compare it to like UFC 263 we just had. Like, and that was a crazy card, and like seeing all those fights. And I remember when we were there in the state, I remember thinking that. I turned to Ash, who was next to me, and just thinking, like, said to him, I was like, man, this is insane. Like, the skill level in this card is insane. And then, like, but that's probably what they were thinking at UFC 1. They would have been looking around the stadium going, this is insane. So, and that's 25 years. How long has America been playing baseball? Like hundreds of years, like well and truly over 100 years, you know? So it's exciting.
And, you know, another thing that is a topic that's coming up recently is fighter pay, right? And I wanted to get your perspectives on this because you do work with guys that are at the highest level, like Israel, and then you work with fighters that are at the lowest level, right? They're heading into their do you work with amateurs too? I believe so, right?
Yeah, we work with full spectrum of guys, and I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions I find, and it's interesting working with guys who go on that initial UFC contract. So like the way it works is when you sign with the UFC, you go on like a first timer contract. It's either a 3 or 4 fight contract, and I won't say exactly what the amounts are that they get, but like a lot of those fighters come out of that fight and finish that camp in debt because they need to pay their gym, they need to pay their coaches, they need to pay people like me that they get on board, their other coaches, they need to pay their living expenses, their rent, you know, that they've been spending 3 months getting ready, and that's their income. And when they get to that point, they quit everything. They don't work a side job. They commit everything to that, and they struggle. Like a lot of fighters in the UFC that go on that first contract and for their first couple of fights are struggling. And I think they have that thing as well, that Bellator allow their fighters to get sponsors to help it out. But in the UFC, they're a lot stricter on like your sponsor deals and things like that. So it's tough for these guys, man. And it's like, I've seen it firsthand, and you get to know these guys, you get to know their family, and that financial stress is a real thing for that first couple of fights until they really prove themselves and prove themselves worthy to the company that they can bring value to, and they get bumped up on the second and third contract deals. Man, it's tough for these guys.
And, you know, one person that you've been working with for a long time that is on her first deal with the UFC is Casey O'Neill. Phenomenal talent, man. I've been interviewing her for a few years now, and I don't even know if you introduced me to her. I maybe that might be the story. I don't know.
Maybe,
I think so, and I appreciate that, man, because right now she's killing it, right? And you've seen the development from her, like having complications with her weight cut. Now it doesn't seem like she has any problems, right?
She's good, man. Casey is she's a phenomenal athlete. Like as a person, she's a great person. I think as a person, she's developed over the years so much. I even messaged her yesterday and said to her, like, I just listened to her on a podcast. I was like, just the way you speak and talk on, you know, podcasts, interviews after your fight, you've come so far. But yeah, man, like as a talent, I think she's probably going to be the next superstar in the female 125 division. But yeah, man, Casey, in terms of her weight cut as well, she's given me, oh man, so many headaches over the years. And I would say probably one of the worst weight cuts I've been involved with was one of her fights when we used to go to 115. But ever since she's made that conscious decision to say, yes, I can do this, and this is a thing. And this is something she said to me the other day, and I think it's a massive psychological shift for her. She said, now I completely believe it. I believe it. Whereas in the past, it was always, oh, is it going to happen? She's like, now I know I can be a superstar in this sport. And now that her whole psychology and her belief system has shifted, she has really taken this stuff really seriously. And her weight is probably one of the best out of all the athletes that I work with. Like her weight is always just outside of where we need to be, like 2 weeks out from a fight. So if she needed to take a short notice fight, she could jump on the opportunity, which 85% of fighters could not do. They could not do that. And Casey's disciplined enough that she can look after her diet now, do her training, stay in good shape. And I think it all stems now that she's realizing, holy smokes, like I could be someone big in this sport. And I think everyone that's watched her last 2 fights, and especially people who've known her for the last few years and her throughout her MMA career, we all believe it too. And I think it's going to happen. I think she's probably going to be one of the biggest prospects to come out of this side of the world. If we're claiming her, I think Scotland will claim her as well too.
Oh, of course, man. Of course, man. Of course. It's, you know, you could hold 2 flags, man. It's no big deal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And with you know, someone like Casey, you know, you've been working with her for many years, even before anybody knew who she was. it's almost like at every level, you know, in every position of the sport, as a coach, as a, you know, a nutritionist, dietitian, whatever, you know, strength and conditioning, there is an investment that you have to make yourself, right? It's not like you're just charging them the same amount forever, you know what I mean, from the start. So it kind of goes back into like what I was talking about fighter pay, right? It's like when they develop in, you know, and rise up the ranks, the pay does get better, but everybody has to make an investment. It's not just the fighter.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like I always say this to the younger guys on my team is like, we want to help as many people as you can, but when you think about like these guys that are like Casey, that's going to rise the ranks and whatnot, you only have so much water you can spread between the cups. So you need to be smart, because to do what I do, it's only a very, very small, you know, thing of what these guys have to do. And I think Brad Riddell fits this category as well, as that making weight is a big thing for a lot of these guys, but it doesn't have to be. But you just have to invest that time over the long run. That's not like 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months. That's 6 to 12 to 18 to 24 months of good investment, rehabilitating your metabolic health, putting your metabolic health first, and making sure you're a prime physiological beast. You have to spend quite a bit of time doing that. And I think, you know, people like Casey, people like Brad, who weren't in such a good spot, but they've put aside the time, you see the rewards of that. But that's also a big investment on our behalf, because it's not just fight camps that you've got to be on top of. It's outside of fight camp as well. You're constantly in contact with them, putting a lot of effort with them, a lot of guidance, but it's always rewarding, because that's the thing, like big risk, big reward, right? So you put in that investment, and then to see these guys, you know, someone like Casey that used to really struggle to make weight, and it was like a 2-day process, and it was just horrible. It was just horrible to see. And now to see it, you know, quite comfortable, and her get good results and reap the benefits, it's really rewarding to see.
Yeah, if she performs the way she's supposed to perform in the next year, she will be a top 10 fighter, I believe. That division is wide open to where she has the skills to kind of push herself through. She's I don't want to say this in a negative way, but she is a bully in a way, you know what I mean, when she fights. If you could see it, right? She's a bully.
Yeah, for sure. That's her mentality, right? Is like, she said this to me only a couple of days ago. We were talking, because I know a lot of people gave her a lot of grief when she choked out old mate. She kind of like pushed her on. I don't know. Maybe that's people don't train. If you've choked someone out and you've had them lay on top of you, like, bodies are heavy. Like, you're not just going to lay there and like you're caught up in the moment. So I don't know why she's copping grief about it. That's so silly. But her attitude when she goes in there is like, I'm willing to die. Like, she's a borderline scary person. Like, she's one of the best humans I know, but she's scary. Like, I wouldn't want to be on her bad side, or I wouldn't want that energy directed at me when she's focused in the cage on an MMA fight, because she has that mentality of, this is do or die. Like, I'm prepared to fall on my shield. And like, that comes from a lifetime of her dad being a professional fighter, like an MMA fighter, and running promotions, and her sitting on the couch when she's 10 years old watching UFC. You know, she's just been programmed to be a killer, you know. And so when you get in that cage with her, that's what you're going to experience.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to see what she can do. I'm always excited to see what fighters can do, since I've known them for a little bit before they went to the UFC, and they go there and they're very successful. And especially on this side of the world, I have a different connection to like Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Oceania, all of that good stuff, right? So hopefully, you know, Casey, you know, does her thing, and she rise up the ranks. Now, before I let you go, man, before we shut this down, I just want to get your thoughts on the next pay-per-view. You know, I mean, there's some big pay-per-views here, and of course the main event at 264 is the trilogy between McGregor and Poirier. McGregor, man, everybody's pointing to him and his training in Abu Dhabi. Like, what is he doing over there? And there's a lot of mystery behind that. And Poirier, he's always at American Top Team, so you have no questions about that. Like, what do you see in this fight? Because in the second fight, you got to give credit to McGregor. He was piecing up Poirier pretty good in the first round. He was doing a good job, right? But it just, something happened in that second round, right? I don't know if it was the leg kicks or what, but something happened, right, where Poirier turned and flipped the switch. What do you see happening in this fight?
Man, it's funny. We just spent like 20 minutes bagging out Firas about his Street Fighter comment, but I did see him say something about like if McGregor was going to win that fight, one of the biggest things he needs to do is like keep distance and just remove the calf kicks and the leg kicks out of the game. And anyone who has ever been leg kicked or calf kicked themselves will realize that. Like it's a pain that it's hard to describe. I've seen it in the gym, actually. I remember seeing Alex Volkanovski calf kick Jamie Malaki in his last camp, and Jamie's whole body just went white because he hit him right on the nerve, and he's like just got that instant foot drop. And how many kicks did Conor take to his calf last time? Like, it's just such a debilitating thing. The thing is that, and I don't know if it's a positive or a negative, is that Poirier is so consistent with his training. Like, he's always been so consistent, you know, with his strength coach, like Phil DeRue, and with his team around him. He's been so consistent. Whereas Conor's always kind of evolved. And I think you've seen that, like, he evolves and he's always up to date. I don't know if that's going to be a positive or negative, but that makes me think that Conor has the capacity to really flip his whole game plan and, you know, maybe goes back to that traditional karate stance where he's in and out and he keeps that distance and he almost takes those leg kicks out. It's like you said, man, when I was watching that, I was pretty sure Conor was going to finish him. Like, when he came in with that boxing and he was hitting that rear uppercut and kind of really tagging him with that left, I thought, man, if he connects, I think he missed a couple like really wild twos. And I was like, man, if they connect with Poirier, this guy's out. Because, like, I haven't met Conor personally, but I know a lot of people in his circles, and they say, man, he's got power like you would not believe. In that left hand, there's just so much power in that. So I'm probably going to put my money on Conor, I think, because I think he's just going to rise to the occasion. The only reason I say that as well is because this game is so mental. I've seen that with all my guys, the mental side of it. And I think Poirier, not that he's like checked out or anything, but the fact that he didn't take that title fight, obviously he knew the trilogy with Conor was coming up, and that's a much bigger payday for him. So it's like, but maybe is he still all in there? I don't think like MMA is a game that you really want to be playing if you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out type thing. And I know Conor's personality and the team that he has around him, like, he's going to be putting everything into this camp. So, man, either way that it goes, it's going to be an awesome fight. But I think I'm going to back McGregor for this one.
Yeah, I was picking McGregor to win the second fight because that's what I thought he was going to do. He was going to come in exactly the same way. But, you know, leading up to that fight, he was just too nice. And leading up to this fight, he's not nice anymore. He's back to Conor, right? And that's the Conor that we want to see. We want to see the Conor that's emotional, the Conor that is calculated with his words and attacking his opponents verbally, mentally, right? That's what we want. We want that mental warfare, and I feel like we have that. And even Poirier's giving it back too, which I love that too, man. They're going back and forth. They're building this fight. I think it's probably one of the biggest fights of the year. I don't know who I'm gonna pick yet because I still want to see how the war of words plays out. You know what I mean? But I look at that training camp in Abu Dhabi and I'm just thinking, like, man, what is he doing over there, man? Can he do it by himself? I know he has a team and everything, but it's just there's a lot of mystery around that. Now, the other fight is the co-main event: Gilbert Burns, Wonderboy Thompson. What do you see in that fight, man? It's like a clash of styles, but when you look at it, Burns has developed a decent striking arsenal himself.
Oh man, it's a hard one. And if I would say Burns every day of the week, if I didn't watch him fight Usman that last one, but it's hard to compare it because Usman is just like, man, he's a special guy. Like, he's a special athlete. But I'm gonna stick with Burns. I think like you said, it's a clash of styles. But before I saw that fight with Usman, I liked Burns' striking. Like, I like how he's developed as a striker. But Wonderboy's so dangerous, man. Like, he can pull anything out and get you, you know. And I'm gonna back Burns for that one. But man, that's gonna be a cracker as well. That's one I wouldn't be surprised either way. If I didn't watch it and you text me the next morning and said, you know, either one of them won, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I can accept it. But and to be fair, I guess now I have a little bit of vested interest in Leon getting through. So and I think Leon would do well against both of them. So yeah, either way, I wouldn't be too mad, but I think Burns might get that one.
Yeah, Burns, you know, he did phenomenal in that first round. I believe he dropped Usman, maybe kind of he dropped to the knee or something like that with the strike. So Burns is good. Thompson, man, you just don't know when age is going to catch up to him. That's the question with Thompson, right? Like,
37,
he's older.
I think.
Yeah, he's 37, something like that. He's up there.
Yeah.
And for a fighter age, right? So we'll see, man. If Thompson can go out there and look like himself, man, it's a tough road for Burns. But I'm picking Burns. I did a preview show about this a few weeks back, and I picked Burns to win the fight. Anyways, Thanks, man, for coming on, man. I always enjoy kind of talking with you about anything, man, because I could talk to you about like nutrition and weight cuts, and I could talk to you about the fights, and we could just talk about whatever. And of course, I'm going to have you back someday, sometime. I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate you taking the time today. Tell everybody where they can find you and anybody we should be looking out for, that you're working with.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let me think on that one for a sec while I give the social spiel. We're on Facebook, The Fight Dietitian, Instagram, _Fight Dietitian. Just jumped on TikTok as well if you guys want to get on that. Jordi Sullivan Dietitian. It's actually a lot funner than what I thought it would be. I dreaded it for so long, but my social guy said you got to do it. Who should we look out for? I don't work with Jack specifically, but I know his team pretty well. But Jack Della's finally getting his contender series I guess debut you'd call it under Scrappy MMA, but he's a eternal MMA product, and man, like that was something I think everyone in Australian MMA was just waiting to happen. So I'm excited to see how Jack Della does. Another Jack that we work with, I just had a call with his dietitian Jack. Man, there's a lot of Jacks going around this little spiel. But Jack Jenkins is another guy from Melbourne who's the eternal MMA featherweight champ. Yeah, we've got a lot of stock in Jack, and I think he's probably going to be the next featherweight to enter into the UFC. But man, Australian and New Zealand MMA at the moment, man, it's on fire. Like the whole world's kind of been locked down, and we've been lucky enough to be getting shows off, and every show is just an absolute banger. Like you got Renton Mumford and Dan Hill fighting for the lightweight title. Like both of those guys, man, are such phenomenal athletes. That's something I'm looking forward to. You got Paul Loger and Shannon Ross fighting for the second time. Like, I love both those guys. That's going to be a firecracker of a fight as well. There's just so much good local talent in Australian MMA and New Zealand MMA at the moment. So I'm looking forward to. One last guy we'll give a shout out to is, and I think he flies under the radar a bit because he's not too big on socials, is Dan Hooker's little protege, Aaron Towsum Up Tau. He's got a fight in about, I don't know if he's announced it, but 10 weeks on XFC in Dunedin to defend his XFC bantamweight belt. And I think Aaron is one of those guys that's flying under the radar that's going to make a big splash when he gets to the UFC as well.
All right, I'm going to have to reach out to Aaron. I've never spoken with Aaron. Spoken with all the other guys you mentioned. Jack Della, look out for him. This dude is a talent. Jack Jenkins also a beast. Both guys, all around great fighters. They're not like, weak in any area. They can go in there and they can hang with the best of them. I hope Jack gets a contender spot if he can. Oh, Jack Jenkins, because Jack Della already has one. Other than that, Jordi, man, appreciate you. Everybody that's watching, leave comments if you are watching the replay. And if you have any questions for Jordi, just hit him on socials, man. The dude is everywhere, even on TikTok. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we're out. Peace.